don't care about how art is actually going to be made in the future. Okay, so I don't know how many of you know about Saffron Art. We've been around since 2000, and along the way, if this presentation feels a little bit Saffron Art heavy, excuse me for that, but it's because along the way we've actually pushed the boundaries globally on selling art online. So this was a time of great excitement for us. This was 3 years ago when we set a global record for selling a work of art online. It sold for $2.2 million. Those were happier times. That was less than 10 crores at that time. And this was a monumental work by a female artist called Arpita Singh. It was 23 feet high and made a lot of buzz in the industry. This was a sadder day when Christie's broke our record, a competing auction house, and they sold online for $9.6 million. So clearly there were some pretty sensational things happening online. As I mentioned, we've been doing this since 2000. We've diversified into all kinds of other categories and interesting objects. Over there in the corner, you see a nano that was painted by an artist, and that sold for 13 lakhs. This was just a few weeks ago. So it's interesting to see that, we're getting a great response, whether it's art, vintage interiors, cars, etc., in terms of people coming forward online. We have two kinds of auctions. We have our flagship auctions, which are sort of higher value. We put more investment behind them in terms of preview events, printed catalogs, etc., not just online promotion. And on average, each painting or each lot sells for $40,000 to $50,000 per lot. In smaller auctions, which are purely online in the sense that we don't do any offline marketing, it's more like $2,500 to $5,000 per lot sold. So those are pretty remarkable numbers. We introduced mobile apps. We actually started with the BlackBerry because that's where most of our customers were. But we have mobile apps for the BlackBerry, the iPod, and then the iPad. And this is how we promoted it. It was kind of a play on, if you go to museums, there are always signs saying, please do not touch the artwork. So that's what we played on in kind of marketing this application. And we've had a lot of success online. So this is a work by Tayyab Mehta. It's of the goddess Kali. And I still remember, this is on our BlackBerry application actually. We got $1 million bid on a BlackBerry. And this was a customer who was traveling in Europe, in between meetings, placing bids. And you can just imagine the excitement we felt as we saw this bid come in on a mobile. This, we think, is a global record for mobile commerce. I mean, it's hard to verify, but I assume it is, where we sold a Hussein painting for $235,000. This was from our iPhone app to someone who was based in London. So, if you look at some of the highlights, I mean, mobile has really taken off, and a lot of that usage actually has happened within India. So, some stats that I've pulled out, an auction in April, we sold 17% of the units that were sold in that auction were sold on mobile. In June 2012, 63% of the lots that were on offer in auction received mobile bids. And in January 2013, we did an auction in which 15% of the gross sales happened on mobile devices. So clearly there's something, fairly remarkable happening here. And, given the audience, given what I'm talking about, what I'm supposed to say, I suppose, is the future is online. But the reality is there is a footnote attached to that. The fact is that a lot of these high-value sales are supported by offline activity. They're supported by a brand that's been built up over a long period of time. It's supported by often face-to-face interactions, offline events, promoting our expertise and having genuine expertise in terms of authenticity. Also, if you come in to bid in our auctions and, as a seller, let's say you're selling a very expensive artwork, the last thing you want is someone bidding on your artwork who's not actually a serious bidder. So what isn't happening is it's not like eBay where someone comes in, puts in a few credentials and off they go. I mean, obviously we have to do a lot of validation, including some offline validation to get people to bid. And you can't take a $100,000 deposit on a credit card as security. You really have to look into who the person is. So on the high end, I feel that the future will be a mix of online and offline. And frankly, I think a lot of the established players are going to continue to prosper and thrive, and they'll take advantage of the online medium as they are today, but I don't anticipate that they'll be displaced by new entrants. Now, where prices are a bit lower, let's say you look at values, let's say between 50,000 rupees and 2.5 lakhs, right? That's where I think things start to get more interesting, because problems that sellers face is frankly of liquidity, right? I mean, they may have artworks that aren't quite as prominent, perhaps not quite as famous artists. It's not necessarily economically viable for them to go around and look for a buyer. And for buyers, it's where do they access the supply that they're looking for? There's unmet demand. How do they access it? And that's where online becomes really important. So reaching out to these isolated pockets of supply and connecting them with this unmet demand. And a huge, huge factor in this is pricing. How do you benchmark unique objects, right? So to be able to look at comparables, if you go to our website, every auction that we've done in the last 13 years, you can see the results of that in terms of the price of every artwork that was sold. And that was a big step. I mean, if you're in a room, in a gallery, talking to a gallerist, trying to buy a painting, all you have is him, yourself, and the painting. I mean, you have no other sources of information. So to be able to provide that online was actually a huge step for the Indian art market and the art market in general. So there is a lot of online momentum towards the lower end as well. So if you look at Christie's, they said in 2012, 40% of the buyers in their online-only auctions were new buyers. So here's that unmet demand that's coming forward. And as a result, they've increased the number of online auctions they're doing from 7 in a year to 50, which is a dramatic increase. We introduced these new auctions called absolute auctions, which have no reserve price. And they're fantastic because in the space of 24 hours, we can generate sales of about $200,000. And what we found was, partly it's that online mentality of that feeling of a deal or an opportunity or an offer. So given the fact that you're saying no reserve price, if it sells for $25, that's what it sells for, you actually get a huge number of buyers coming in and participating. So, and what we found is using vehicles like Facebook, particularly being able to promote through your own network to their friends, has been remarkably successful. And we've been able to acquire new buyers this way. There's also a large number of new online startups that have come up, mostly in the West. And now, the big daddy has amazingly also entered the space. This just happened a couple of weeks ago. So you can see here, Amazon is offering this painting for $4.85 million, plus free shipping. And it says that it usually ships within 4 to 5 days. I don't know how they figured out, what frequency a $4.8 million painting usually ships at. But so and it says sign in to turn on one-click ordering. That sounds a bit scary to me. But so and they put up this Monet painting right when they launched. And this kind of shows some of the pitfalls of online players getting into the super high-end. So this was also, I think it was a $1.5 million work. Pretty soon there were questions online about authenticity and so on. And a few days later, they actually took it down without explanation. So I actually think that players like Amazon, I think they'll have an impact on the lower end of the market.
1 minute left.
I do not see them really having an impact on the high end. And you can see some of the kind of tongue-in-cheek user reviews that people put up. Used painting, I think someone has owned this before. Beware of Manet ripoffs, make sure you only buy a Monet, etc., etc. So it was really quite amusing. Anyhow, what I'm going to end with, and I don't think people will be able to figure out what this bar chart is really about, but any idea, any guesses? Okay, yeah. So you can see some famous artists are there, yeah. So I'm just going to I know this is about the future, but I'm just going to look back a little bit and just make one point, which is, these are the ages of prominent Indian artists, and the asterisk represents the ones who are still not out. And the point I want to make is these are people, when they started painting, They did it with no hope of money. They did it for the love of it. They spent their lives essentially working in solitude, with quiet, and engaged in what they did. And they lived these long, interesting lives. And I just want to point this out because I want to say, I think today we're living in this world where there's constant stimulus, pollution of tweets and online activity and all of that. And I just want to say, give this a little bit of thought, because I think we could all use with a little bit of quiet and engagement in activities that we love. Thank you.